Section 5. Nature and Grace, the Instruments of God. The less capable the soul in the state of abandonment is of defending itself, the more powerfully does God defend it. The one and infallible influence of the divine action is invariably applied to the submissive soul at an opportune moment, and this soul corresponds in everything to its interior direction. It is pleased with everything that has taken place, with everything that is happening, and with all that affects it, with the exception of sin. Sometimes the soul acts with full consciousness, sometimes unknowingly, being led only by obscure instincts to say, to do, or to leave certain things, without being able to give a reason for its action. Often the occasion and the determining reason are only of the natural order. The soul, perceiving no sort of mystery therein, acts by pure chance, necessity, or convenience, and its act has no other aspect either in its own eyes or those of others, while all the time the divine action, through the intellect, the wisdom, or the counsel of friends, makes use of the simplest things in its favor. It makes them its own, and opposes so persistently every effort prejudicial to them that it becomes impossible that these should succeed. To have to deal with a simple soul is, in a certain way, to have to deal with God. What can be done against the will of the Almighty and His inscrutable designs? God takes the cause of the simple soul in hand. It is unnecessary for it to study the intrigues of others, to trouble about their worries, or to scrutinize their conduct. Its spouse relieves it of all these anxieties, and it can repose in Him full of peace and in security. The divine action frees and exempts the soul from all those low and noisy ways so necessary to human prudence. These suited Herod and the Pharisees, but the Magi had only to follow their star in peace. The child has but to rest in his mother's arms. His enemies do more to advance his interests than to hinder his work. The greater efforts they exert to thwart and to take him unawares, the more freely and tranquilly does he act. He never humors them, nor basely truckles to them to make them turn aside their blows. Their jealousies, suspicions, and persecutions are necessary to him. Thus did Jesus Christ living in Judea, and thus does he live now in simple souls. In them he is generous, sweet, free, peaceful, fearless, needing no one, beholding all creatures in his Father's hands, and obliged to serve him, some by their criminal passions, others by their holy actions, the former by their contradictions, the latter by their obedience and submission. The divine action balances all this in a wonderful manner. Nothing is wanting, nor is anything superfluous, but of good and evil there is only what is necessary. The will of God applies at each moment the proper means to the end in view, and the simple soul, instructed by faith, finds everything right, and desires neither more nor less than what it has. It ever blesses that divine hand which so well apportions the means, and turns every obstacle aside. It receives friends and enemies with the same patient courtesy with which Jesus treated everyone, and as divine instruments. It has need of no one, and yet needs all. The divine action renders all necessary, and all must be received from it, according to their quality and nature, and corresponded to with sweetness and humility. The simple treated simply, and the unpolished kindly. This is what St. Paul teaches, and what Jesus Christ practiced most perfectly. Only grace can impress this supernatural character, which is appropriate to and adapts itself to each person. This is never learnt from books, but from a true prophetic spirit, and is the effect of a special inspiration and a doctrine of the Holy Spirit. To understand it, one must be in the highest state of abandonment, the most perfect freedom from all design and from all interests, however holy. One must have in view the only serious business in the world, that of following submissively the divine action. To do this, one must apply oneself to the fulfilling of the obligations of one's state, and allow the Holy Spirit to act interiorly without trying to understand his operations, but even being pleased to be kept in ignorance about them. Then one is safe, for all that happens in the world can work nothing but good for souls perfectly submissive to the will of God. Section 6. Supernatural Prudence. The soul in the state of abandonment does not fear its enemies, but finds in them useful helps. I fear more my own action and that of my friends than that of my enemies. There is no prudence so great as that which offers no resistance to enemies, and which opposes to them only a simple abandonment. This is to run before the wind, and as there is nothing else to be done, to keep quiet and peaceful. There is nothing that is more entirely opposed to worldly prudence than simplicity. It turns aside all schemes without comprehending them, without so much as a thought about them. The divine action makes the soul take such just measures as to surprise those who want to take it by surprise themselves. It profits by all their efforts, and is raised by the very things that are done to lower it. They are the galley slaves who bring the ship into port with hard rowing. All obstacles turn to the good of this soul, and by allowing its enemies a free hand, it obtains a continual service, so sufficing that all it has to fear is lest it should itself take part in a work of which God would be principal, and his enemies the agents, and in which it has nothing to do but to peacefully observe the work of God, and to follow with simplicity the attractions he gives it. The supernatural prudence of the divine spirit, the principle of these attractions, infallibly attains its end, and the precise circumstances of each event are so applied to the soul, without its perception, that everything opposed to them cannot fail to be destroyed.